Welcome back to the PC podcast, Obesity on Air, with Paul and Colin. So, we've talked over the last couple of episodes around my story, losing over 21 stone. Now it's time that we're going to do something a little bit different. And my co-host, Professor Paul Gately, is in the hot seat today. And I'm going to be grilling him around who he is and why he does what he does. So, Paul, how are you feeling about this?
Not sure how I'm feeling about it at the moment. Let's see how you get on.
Okay, Paul. So it's a bit late now. We're in the studio. Buckle up.
Ready to go.
So, Paul, it's fair to say you are very well regarded within the scientific community, studies around obesity and exercise. But who are you? Who is the man behind the professorship?
Well, I guess I have a number of different roles. So one, I suppose I'd clump my work into three boxes, and they cover the different roles that I do. One is I'm really passionate about understanding the problem of obesity. So that's the first thing. So that really links to the roles that I have in academia as a professor. So I'm a visiting professor of Leeds Beckett University, and that's a role I've had for a very long time. I also run a company called More Life, which was set up in the university as a research unit, and we now deliver services, weight loss services across the country, what are called tier 1, tier 2 or tier 3 services. So that's what we do. And that's what I do. I manage a sort of team of people. We support about and deliver services to about 40,000 people a year. And then I guess the work that I do with Obesity UK, I'm the chief exec of Obesity UK. I was a founding trustee of Obesity UK, I think over 13 years ago now. And I'm also a trustee of an organisation called the Association for Study of Obesity, which is a sort of academic research group that is really focused on understanding more obesity. So they're the things that I do in terms of my day job.
And who are you as a person? Who sits behind that?
So I'm a dad of 5 kids. I'm really lucky. I've got some amazing friends. If I'm to talk about the things that I like doing, I love spending time with my kids and going out and travelling with them. But for me, I enjoy climbing mountains and doing sort of things like that. Again, really good friends that look after me in the mountains because I don't have enough time to learn to be a good mountaineer myself.
So you're not a good mountaineer?
No, I've got a few good friends that look after me.
So all these posts that I see of you scaling up these mountains, you're actually not that good at it?
No, I'm there and I'm scared, but I've got somebody really good looking after me.
And Paul, tell us one fact about you that nobody would expect.
I guess the one, well, I think my 5 kids. I've got 5 kids. They're all born within 5.5 years of each other, which made life really challenging for a period of time in terms of bringing up 5 kids, busy job. Yeah, and that may be the one thing that people don't know about me.
And how did you end up being connected to people who are overweight and obese? You yourself have never struggled with it. I've known you for 25 years.
Yeah, no, I've never. Well, it's all relative because I still think about my weight on a regular basis and work at it. But I guess I by fluke really. I mean, somebody put my application for a job on a pile and changed my life when I was 18 years old, and I went to work at weight loss camp, and we've touched on this before, and that changed my life really.
So, Paul, can you just tell us a little bit around why you are so passionate about fighting the case for against weight stigma?
So it's probably a justice type thing. I mean, there's a real lack of understanding of the issue of how do people gain weight, how do people lose weight. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, our society seems to have created a story that says people are lazy and greedy. And so first of all, I have a problem with that. I have a real problem with that very simplistic judgment. But the second thing is, all the work that I've done has made me believe that if all you do is stigmatize and demonize people, all that will happen is they are less likely to be successful. And so for me, I just want to correct those misperceptions. One, understand more about how to help people lose weight and keep that weight off. And secondly, how to overcome the stigma that a lot of people think is necessary to solve the problem.
But you don't have any skin in the game here. You've never been overweight. You've never been obese.
No, I've not been overweight, but I spent time in family life. My mum always had a weight problem. And as a kid, I used to be scared that she won't be with me in the future because of her weight. And so we'd have conversations. And I guess what I learned during those conversations was it's all well and good knowing the information, because I kept telling her to exercise and eat better, but actually upset my mum with the passion I tried to take this issue on. So I was there talking to her, and in the end, she felt as though I was criticising her. And I learned a lot about that, realising that actually, what do I want? Do I love my mum and do I care about my mum? Or do I want something to happen in the future? And I didn't want to make her life miserable every day. So I started to think, what am I doing? I'm doing it the wrong way here. And so that, I suppose, was an early spark to understand it, not just say what I felt, but actually understand the truth behind why she had a weight problem.
And you talked in previous episodes about how you'd worked on weight loss camps in America. Was that experience with your mum before or after those camps?
Yeah, no, the experience with my mum was younger. So, she, like most at the time, she was a mum, middle-aged mum, looking after a number of kids. But I could remember her going to the swimming clubs. I can remember her going to do exercise and aerobics and all these other things that I saw. And I thought, brilliant. But then I would also see her weight getting higher and higher. And as a kid, I suppose as most kids do, think about the health of their parents. But it became something that was important to me. But then I learned with my mum that actually, I probably as I became a teenager, realised that actually some of my comments they were hurtful, not intentionally hurtful. And it was great that my mum gave me the feedback, but they were probably hurtful.
That experience with your mum, and given everything that you've learned so far, how does that now translate into the person that you are now and the career that you've had?
So I guess life with mum, and then moving into being dumped on a weight loss camp for kids, and then finding something that I thought was really interesting. And when I worked on the camp, I realised that, I wasn't always the most... I realised I could help the kids in some ways, and I enjoyed that. And so I found reward in that. And then I thought, where do I go from here? And it seemed to me that there was almost no understanding of how to seriously tackle childhood obesity in the 90s. A lot of talk about it, but not really any action. And I had some really good mentors at the time who said to me, why don't you follow a career in academia? And that resonated with me because it was about the first step in the journey was understanding, because I'd not really understood when I was younger. So it was about understanding. And then once I started to understand, I had to, set up the first UK camp for kids, and you join that. But then I've gone on from them to understanding what are the key ingredients of weight loss. Then I've moved into how do you translate that from a group of 10 people to 10,000 people? How do you change the sort of systems? And more recently, the last 10 years, I guess I've spent, how do you work at a government level? How do you work at an industry level? How do you work with organisations like Obesity UK to change the message? That's where my career has gone, to move from... And I love working with individuals. It's what I like doing. That's all the time we've ever interacted. I'm fascinated by you as a person, you as a friend, but also your journey that you're on. But I've spent a lot of my last 10 years trying to translate that in a way that can help people living with obesity lead a richer and healthier lifestyle. And richer, I mean by having a better life, because I've met a lot of people living with obesity that are struggling with their life.
You talked quite a bit there about misconceptions, and what people think about obesity is obviously very different to what the reality of it is. And I think you and I both know that from different sides of the spectrum. I've got a couple of questions for you. All right, we're going to do this in a bit of a quick fire way. All right, so bear with me here. Right, I just want your first thoughts on this. So, What do you think doctors get wrong about obesity?
Well, doctors are trained very medically, biologically. And there are some fantastic doctors out there, but there are equally some doctors that only think biology, when we know people living with obesity, the factors that contribute are not just biology. They are partly biology, but they're also psychological, they're also social, they're also emotional. And if you're a doctor looking at a problem from one perspective, then you're going to miss a lot of other rich parts to helping a patient lead a healthy lifestyle. So unfortunately, lots of doctors just think biologically rather than more broadly than that.
And then what do you think is the worst weight loss advice you've ever heard?
Well, for me, the worst weight loss advice is the advice that makes the person feel unhappy. Because people are never going to be able to manage their weight if they're miserable. I mean, the evidence is really clear. And so there's lots of really bad advice, but if it fundamentally makes people miserable, that's the worst advice.
So you've obviously been you've had skin in this game for 25 years. If you could go back in time and change one health policy, what would it be?
It's not about changing policies, it's about putting policies in place. So over the last decade, there's been something like 700 UK government policies, and none of them have been put into place. So this is the issue. It's not that we don't know what to do. It's that we don't do what we've said we should do. So that's the issue, that we've got politicians talking about it, but they're not doing what they've said.
What do you mean by that, Paul? Like what I'm struggling to understand is, as somebody suffering with obesity, what does that translate to for me?
Okay, so the government knows that obesity costs the economy billions of pounds a year, and the government knows that there are programs that can solve obesity. There are some in the region of over 4 million people living with severe obesity, and there are places that help them equivalent to 35,000 places for 4 million people. So if we put that into perspective, if we had cancer sufferers, 4 million, and we had 35,000 places for people to get treated with cancer, there would be complete uproar in every newspaper. But that is the reality of obesity. So it's not that the government don't know what to do, it's that they're not doing what they say they should do.
And why is that?
Well, I think it's for a couple of reasons. One is because obesity is seen as a hard thing to overcome, because of the fact that I guess we have a medical profession that looks at cancer and heart disease as different to obesity, as something that happens to somebody, and therefore it's the state's responsibility to help those cancer sufferers and those sufferers of heart disease. And I actually agree with that. But causes of obesity are the same as the causes of heart disease and cancer. 60% of cancers are related to lifestyle factors. So therefore, obesity and cancer are pretty similar in that sense of what causes them. So you can't have two diseases that government get behind and one disease that it doesn't. I just don't agree that that's right. So this is about government being serious about the issue of obesity, and they're not. I guess the other thing I'd say is there's a lot of stigma. Okay, and there's this view of personal responsibility. It's your fault because you eat too much. It's your fault because you're lazy. And therefore, it's not our responsibility as a state to deal with it.
But isn't that true?
Well, no. I mean, I've just given you an example that people that suffer with heart disease, the majority of factors that contribute to heart disease are lifestyle factors. Inactivity, poor diet, type of fats within the diet are examples of what we know contribute to heart disease. And the government invest billions every year in helping people with heart disease. But it does, you can go in and there's thousands and thousands of surgeries on the heart and in every day. But there's a few surgeries for obesity every day.
And I'm playing devil's advocate here, right? But fundamentally, we've talked about energy imbalance, calories in, calories out. Right, I control my own hand. I control what I put in my mouth. Is that not down personal with that responsibility?
So I agree with that in terms of responsibility, and there is a personal responsibility. But if 60% of cancers are related to a lifestyle, then surely that's also true for those cancer sufferers. But you would never hear a politician saying, it's your fault you've got cancer. And yet they say it's your fault you have obesity.
So in what you've just said there, and again, I'm playing devil's advocate here. If somebody's got a heart disease, we feel sorry for them. If somebody's got cancer, we feel sorry for them. And we see all of the sad, Cancer Research UK advert, and we all feel this horrific sadness of this awful disease.
Which I agree with.
Yeah.
I'm completely empathetic to those people suffering like that.
But nobody, unless you lived with it, nobody feels that sorrow and that sadness and that empathy with somebody who's 30 stone walking down the street.
I do. And I guess that's what my career's taught me, that effectively from a young age, I saw something that for me didn't make sense. I was trying to understand. That's why I spent most of my time trying to understand the issue of obesity, because when you then begin to understand it, I now ask the question of why do we treat people differently when the causes of heart disease, cancer and obesity are biological and genetic, they are lifestyle, and they are sort of social and emotional. They're all just, they're all caused by the same factors. So why would we treat people differently for one disease when there's two other diseases that the causes are the same?
That makes a lot of sense. So, Paul, the last question we've got in this quick fire round. What do you do to switch off from all this very serious, very, very lofty work?
I don't switch. Well, there's 2 points to that. Is one, I don't switch off from it. And two, I actually don't find it serious. I find it really fascinating. So mixing my job with my passion is, I guess, a sign that I actually enjoy the work that I do, people I work with, the role that I'm trying to do. And I do feel as though I'm making a contribution. So all of that drives me to keep going.
Cool. And then, so in all of this, Paul, has your work affected how you see your own health? I mean, obviously you come from an athletic background, you ran and you still run now, that's an important part of your life. Has your work changed how you approach your own diet, your own training, etc.?
I guess it's hard to disentangle the sort of work and personal. I've been really lucky that I've engaged in a lot of different sports and activities. I've been around people that do that. I went to university, did sports science, so I've always been around people sporty and active. I guess the food side is a bit more challenging because I like food. I like going to nice restaurants. I like eating out, and I like food. And so the challenge is the balancing of the behaviors of my food, like everybody else. So I like pizza, I like chips, I like chocolate, but I know I've got to manage those things in order to be as healthy as I can. Now, I don't get it right all the time. Nobody's perfect, and I'm not going to say I am. But it is still important to me.
And have you ever felt that your work in this arena is either judged or dismissed because you haven't had that lived experience?
I think the lived experience is one. So yes, I am regularly. It's interesting because even within Obesity UK, there's questions asked about, well, how can somebody who is leading a charity when he's not had or got a weight problem, and I guess there is some truth to that. But I try to surround myself with our board, involving yourself, calling this for me feels as though there's the right people around that can steer me the right way, and even in experiences I don't have. So yes, I do get judged, but at the same time, I feel as though I have the right people around me. At the same time, I've also been judged about this agenda as well. So when I was early in my career working and doing research around obesity, I came from the exercise side. And so, at the time, and it's changed now, but at the time, people doing dietetics and nutrition was sort of like, no, you have no right to be involved in obesity at all because food is the most important variable in obesity. And I guess so part of the reason why I actually did a master's was because, and I did a master's alongside my PhD, was just to tick the box so people couldn't. So I took a 3-year master's degree in human nutrition because lots of people challenged me on the right I had to be there. And then I guess finally, when I set up the weight loss camp in the UK for kids, maybe it's a long episode about judgment in the media and judgment from other people, but actually I was vilified in the media for running this weight loss camp for kids. And all I was trying to do was put into practice 8 years of my PhD work and research, but people weren't prepared to ask those questions.
And in a world where as we just talked around, people don't have that sympathy, they don't have that empathy for people who are suffering from obesity, how do you stay motivated?
Well, I stay motivated because in the 30 years I've been involved in it, the progress has been incredibly slow and the problem is getting worse and worse. And I guess what is now frustrating, I'm at a part of my career and my life where I start to see the same old nonsense coming back round again. It's almost like there's these trends and, new people enter the field and say, I've got a simple solution to solve obesity. And it's ridiculous. I mean, it's completely ridiculous, but it keeps happening. And I guess now I'm fending off the new silly simple solutions to obesity when we know it's so much more complicated than that.
So Paul, what keeps pushing you forward?
Well, we've still got a problem, and the problem's getting worse. It's not getting better. And all the statistics show the problem's getting worse, despite lots of talk about it. And I guess because people have a single solution mindset around this, i.e. do this diet, take this weight loss drug, have this surgery, those things might work for a bit of time, but they don't work for everyone all the time. And I suppose my work is about trying to help individuals navigate the complex ways to actually lose weight and be healthy.
And what do you think that future looks like for us in the UK?
I think at the moment the future isn't great, if I'm being honest. I think, we're sort of early 2025. We've got a relatively new government in. It's prioritising health as an issue, but there's huge waiting lists. We've got a really poor performing economy, and therefore issues like obesity, as has happened for the last 30 years, are one of those things that politicians can push down the road. And I want to fight to make sure that they can stop pushing it down the road. And that's actually what we've been here today in London with Parliament, with MPs, with people from the House of Lords, championing obesity being made more of a priority than it is. Because we could save a lot of money in the economy if we do something about obesity rather than talk about it.
What would be your one piece of advice as we start to kind of come to a close on today's episode? What would be that one piece of advice for anyone out there who's struggling with their weight or with obesity and worrying about that stigma?
So I would say, of course, this is a podcast about Obesity UK, but I'm genuinely passionate about this. That's why Obesity UK was set up. Obesity UK was set up to give people a voice. But actually what we found is there is a voice, but actually there's lots of people supporting each other. We have thousands of people every single day. I mean, I love looking at our Facebook posts and our groups and our forums where people are sharing stories, sharing the challenges, helping each other overcome the day-to-day challenges. So, of course, this is a podcast for Obesity UK, and I'm biased, but I would say get involved with Obesity UK. The second ask I'd have, though, is that the bigger the voice of all of our members, the more likely we are to solve the problem. And I think, unfortunately, because of the stigma that has been faced by people living with obesity, they are quieter than they should be. Whereas we talked earlier about cancer and heart disease, and we have very vocal, entities. We've got the British Heart Foundation, an amazing charity. We've got Cancer Research UK, an amazing charity. They get millions and millions of pounds every year. We are in the single-digit thousands of pounds as a charity for the most serious public health issue on the planet. And so for me, more people, more voice will begin to change.
And if that's not an amazing call to action, I don't know what is. And I'd echo that. You know, if you're out there and you're listening to this podcast right now, sign up to the Obesity UK website, log onto our Facebook page. You know, if you found this podcast because you're struggling or one of your family members is struggling, come on board and engage with that Facebook group.
And that's it. That I totally agree, and that's what we need. We need the more voices we have, the easier it will be to change the government's attitude to obesity.
Well. It turns out, Paul, you're clearly not quite as serious as we thought. That was a really fun episode, and it was really interesting delving into your career and why you're so passionate about this. And I think really sort of dispelling a few myths about Professor Paul Gately. So hopefully. Yeah, and indeed. So thanks very much for listening. And don't forget, Paul's not just serious, although he is our resident scientist. And then, once again, guys, please tune in next week. We're going to be starting to have some of our special guests on board, and we'll tease that on the Facebook group. But in the meantime, if you're looking for support, if you're looking for where to go to get some advice, drop on the Obesity UK Facebook page, on our Instagram, and we'll see you next week.
Bye for now.